Welcome to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. This is our weekly venture into the world of small to medium-sized businesses and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives success.
So our goal here is to help you grow and to be the best you can be, both in business and personally. To do that, we identify and we discuss topics that will hopefully help you as you work to build a successful business.
We also interview business owners and executives. It's our hope that you may be able to gain insight on ways to help you be a better leader and provide a better culture for your people.
Our mission here is to help you pull the chute once a week to work on your business instead of always working in your business.
So we hope you find these discussions insightful, helpful, and useful.
And thanks for your support. We hope you enjoy today's podcast.
Well, welcome everyone to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. We are so excited that you're here with us today. Jana, how are you doing today?
I am good. Hey, it's Halloween. I know we
is,
are on Halloween, but today is a spooky day and it's going to rain here in Nashville. So we'll see if we get some little trick-or-treaters. I love Halloween because I love to see the costumes. Being an acting person, it's fun.
It is. It's always so fun. Yeah. For the listeners, we record these throughout the week. So we're going to say it's Halloween. You might not hear this until January of some sort, but that's okay. We like to keep it real and keep it, aware of what we're doing. So,
yeah.
Jana, we have a wonderful guest. We actually had his daughter on a couple of weeks back, maybe a month ago back, Hannah.
Yes.
Now her dad is here. So David MacDonald, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being here.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. I'm sorry that you're having me after Hannah. I prefer to go ahead of her. She leaves a very distinct, memorable, and so I got to try and live up to her quality.
That's right.
Well, I would say proud papa at that point, wouldn't you?
You know what I am? Like she's an impressive young lady, and she's really honed her voice and understands Gen Z as she is one, obviously. And I like to think that she has old world values, and sometimes she refers to herself as being boomer endorsed. So she's a Gen Z that's boomer endorsed. That's a hard combination to get to.
Yeah, right. I agree. So, David, for our listeners, do us a favor and just tell us a little bit about you and how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. Thank you so much. So, my name is Dave MacDonald. I own the Better Together Group. We're a group of employment agencies that support companies with hiring. We also have a payroll service here in Central Florida that we can serve small, medium-sized enterprises across the country from coast to coast. So if you're tired of shooting yourself in the foot with payroll remittances and stuff like that and want somebody to help you, we can do that to help people. And then we do also a bit of culture consulting, or we refer to the Better Together Group as trying to help companies solve people problems. So people problems come with money, people come from culture, and people problems come from just having too many or too few. So I got here. Gosh, how did I get here? By accident. I got fired a lot when I was young, and that's probably how I got into staffing. In my 20s, like my wife is just a picture of perseverance. In my 20s, I got married at 20 years old, and between 20 and 28, I think I had like 10 or 12 different employers. My longest term of employment was 18 months.
Wow.
My shortest was hours or a day. I just really struggled to find work. And then we, being young and in love, we had kids early on. I was a father at 25, and we had twins right out of the gate. So that throws you into the middle of something. So struggling to keep a job and having that many kids that early just meant that I had to hustle hard. And so I worked for a lot of staffing companies. I did a lot of temp, or what we today would refer to as gigging type work. Like, not musically, I don't have the skills that Jeff may have there based on the guitar, but I just, anything to make a dollar in those days. And so one of the things I did was I interviewed for a staffing company to be in a sales role, and I didn't get the job, but I loved the concept and it stuck with me. And so our purpose as a company is feeding families one shift at a time.
Oh, that's great. So what were the struggles, Dave? Like, tell us a little bit about, now you were young, it was a totally different time. I get that, but what did you find sort of the consistent issue in getting a lot of different jobs at that phase?
Sure.
Communication, you were in the wrong place.
I was um I was arrogant.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm not arrogant today. But I hope I hold it better.
Yeah. Okay.
I genuinely, I came. One of the things we say about McDonald's and is often wrong, but never in doubt.
Yeah.
And so I would share my opinion with people too strongly for the relational equity that I had, too strong for the return on investment I had already provided to the company. And so I came out of the gate much stronger than I should have. And I didn't have a lot of people smarts.
Yeah, I got
Patrick
you.
Lenciani talks about the ideal team players being hungry, humble, and smart. And when he says smart, he means people smart.
Yeah. So
I was
emotional intelligence is what Jeff and I call it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would say that I was hungry, and I was not humble, and I was not smart.
I got you.
So
Yeah.
I could only check one box, and that's not a great thing for an employee.
Yeah.
I got you.
So
Yeah.
you love this whole idea, you love this whole concept. So then let's go for there. How'd you end up here now?
Yes.
Pardon me. I'm a sales guy. And so I just sell stuff. That's what I do. People trust me. Like, while they may not like me, they trust me.
Mhm.
uh, because because I'm so quick to speak. They get the truth from me every time, and people quickly understand that. And that's a key to sales, is just being honest and trustworthy. Um,
Sure.
and so um, I had a couple of different, and I'm a self-employed kind of person. Like I could never, like I said I couldn't keep a job, but when I was like 12, I was selling eggs to my mom's ceramic uh
Yeah.
studio clients.
You're
My
just a
mom was
salesperson. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was a serial entrepreneur, so I've just always been selling stuff, and so it just became a natural opportunity for me. And I had a brother who was an accountant, and he had some clients that were in the staffing business, and they created a pathway for me to come in and partner and eventually lead my own business.
So this Better Together then, Dave, tell us a little bit about how you're different than other staffing agencies. Like, how do you separate yourselves out?
Sure. What I would say is we have a couple of commercials that where we try to illustrate this. One would be better requires a conversation.
Mhm.
Better requires time to just like, let's talk about this. Um, Better takes time. You can't get better quicker
I got
than the other service. It generally does, unless you're willing to pay a massive premium. So a better requires a conversation, better takes time. Um, and it's really about engaging in that relationship with the client and engaging with that relationship with the candidate and making sure that there's a good fit.
you. Mhm.
And so for us, it's about what we try to say to our candidates that are coming in. Think of us um, as a white collar staffing company that specializes in executives and CEOs.
Mhm.
We want to
Mhm.
give you the same time and attention. And just because you're turning tools or you're working in an unskilled job, which is
Mhm.
probably more skilled than most middle or senior management roles, if just because you're doing something that to other people is menial doesn't mean you're menial to us.
Mhm.
You're important
Mhm.
to us, and we want to give you the time and attention that you deserve as a human. And so by humanizing the hiring process, we get further down the road with people. And it's not that we don't use AI or technology, we certainly do, but we use that to support the relationship, not to replace the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So our differentiator is just more intimacy with both the clients and the candidates.
And what are you finding? Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Right. I was asking, so you said better together, you have multiple companies that you're working with? Is that
Yeah, so Better Together is an amalgamation of three brands. Help Unlimited, which did light industrial and skilled trade staffing. So right from general labor, like digging ditches, emptying containers, that type of um, entry level general labor, to essential staffing, which did more white collar, office clerical type of hiring, to Revolution Staffing, which did truck driving. So we brought them together under one brand. The two companies, Revolution Staffing and Essential Staffing, are companies that I founded and started. Help Unlimited was a company that I purchased. And on the first day I was talking with the staff, I was explaining to them that I wanted us to be better together as a group, as a reason of the acquisition. And that just clicked and became our new brand.
Very cool.
That's
Love it.
great.
Love it.
And what are you finding in today's candidate or today's employee? Anything different than you did before? I mean, let's talk a little bit about the Gen Zers and some of these people, the younger millennials. Are you finding that some of the aspects of hiring are easier with this generation, or what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, well, what I would say is that Gen Z is more interested in long-term relationships than millennials were. Millennials are more transactional. When you think about the quiet quitting thing, that's a millennial deal. Okay. Gen Xers don't do that. Gen Z really doesn't do that. If Gen Z is not going to show up, they're not going to show up. But
Oh, man.
and Gen X just shows up. Like Gen X, is just a group of hardworking, nose to the grindstone kind of people. Millennials are of the groupings en masse, not specific. I'm not talking about any individual human, but en masse are more like just they're willing to they're a little bit more entitled, I would say, and just a little bit more like, if you don't give me what I want, I'll give you what I have to give you. And so at Better Together Group, we talk to our employees about being integrity people, intense people, and intentional people. So by integrity is being the same person you are when your boss is in the room and when they're not in the room. Integrity is consistency. It's having a code of ethics that you stand for and execute on regardless of what's going on. And the problem with integrity is everyone believes that they have it.
Right.
And not as many do as you think.
Right. Once they're pushed into a certain way or pushed into a certain situation, the integrity crumbles immediately.
Yes.
Yeah. And typically integrity crumbles out of perceived necessity, right? It's like, well, I didn't want to do that, but I had to do that.
Right. Survival.
No, you had to do that to get your way. There were other consequences that were available to you that you weren't willing to pay.
Right.
And so you felt like you had to do it, but you didn't have to do it. In my opinion. So that's like integrity. Intentionality is having a plan and working a plan. It's just like, this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to go and execute.
Yeah.
Intensity is bringing enough fire that you get that plan across the finish line.
Yeah.
You don't get stopped somewhere in the middle. And so, here, let me see if this will work. I don't know if this will work. Let me see. No, it won't work. I'm going to not do it. I've got a little, I call them Stanley, but it's, those attention grabbers that are at the side of the road, they're waving their arms in the air like this.
Yeah.
That's a great example of the 3 I's. Intentionality. So, integrity is the base, the weight that holds the whole thing down. Without the base, the whole thing flies away. Intentionality is the fan that's pumping the air up through Stanley and is making him stand up and wave around. Um, and so, but the guy that's waving around, that's your intensity. That's what you're seeing out there. So intentionality is the fuel that makes him wave, and the base is what holds him together.
Yeah.
Does
Love
that make
it.
sense to you?
Yep.
Another illustration I use for it is a furnace. You think about, I'm down in Florida, but if you think about a furnace, you have the furnace box that contains the fire. The fire is intensity. The
Mhm.
heating ducts that go out through the house are intentionality, but integrity is the furnace box that holds the fire and makes sure your house doesn't burn down.
Yeah.
Those are the three I's.
Very
I like
cool. Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
I want to shift if we could, because I want to get a little bit in here about this. You were doing culture consulting.
Mhm.
I want to talk a little bit about what that is, and just so our listeners can understand, where you're coming from and how they might be able to better themselves by hearing this.
Sure, it really is helping companies talk about those three I's in ways that are applicable. So one of the things about integrity is I don't believe if you don't there's a dichotomy in business around um, employers that want everything from their employee and employees that want to give only what they have to give to get the paycheck.
Mhm.
And what I would say is, a person with integrity is going to give you all that they have every day. And so now that doesn't mean that they're going to work 100 hours a week. That means they're going to give you their fullest energy that they have on that given day. But the amount of energy that you have from day to day fluctuates. And businesses need to be respectful and understanding that their employees, when a mom's coming back off maternity leave, her her fullness is different than it was 2 years ago.
Sure, sure, makes sense.
When an employee buys a new house and moves into a new house, and they show up on the Monday after moving on a weekend, their fullness is less. Let's just be honest about it.
Mhm.
And so as business owners, let's be respectful of that and give a little bit of cushion and make some way. And as employees, let's be honest about the fact, let's not lie that we moved over the weekend. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so I believe that fullness is super important, that you have to give your fullness. And if you don't give your fullness, you aren't a person of integrity.
Yeah, well, I love that because I mean, the reality is each and every day, like, I slept like crap last night, so I'm a little bit dragging today, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And so my fullness is probably, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably sitting around a 6 right now.
Right.
So yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And if your business partners and coworkers and even your subordinates don't understand that, then that's not okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree totally. And so, how do you walk these people through this? I mean, is it a workshop? Is it an ongoing thing? What's the consulting deal with, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's really ad hoc. Like it depends on what people need. I don't have a preset plan that like there's these 13 sessions. It's more coming in and doing life with people and talking about these things as a team and as a group and um really trying to scripture has a term that talks about stirring one another up towards love and good deeds. That's
Right.
like a biblical principle about what people are supposed to do for each other. And that's what I'm trying to do for business owners and employees. Just trying to come in and have open, honest conversations with them that stirs them up into a spot where like, hey, we can talk about this. We can have frank conversations and not hurt each other. We can be honest in
Right.
in business context. How to disagree with diplomacy and kindness.
Mhm. And do you think that spreads across all the generations? Again, I'm leaning on Jana's expertise here in communication, but I mean, when we're talking about the three I's, is it equal across the generations? Because again, we got the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, and the Gen Zers all trying to figure out how to work within the three I's. And so, is that always a problem or not a problem? Or
I would say, and I don't have any statistics to back this up, so this is just opinions. But I would say that each generation would do better in one of the I's as a group. And so boomers, I think, bring a greater level of intensity, typically, traditionally, maybe not as they age and their fullness is lesser, but over the course of their career, they were a very intense group of people. They worked more hours. There were more workaholics in that generation. There were people that just got stuff done that were in the boomer generation. I would say that millennials are really good at intentionality. They're very much more process oriented and thoughtful in the way they look to do their work. And I think it's really important, and I don't know that people understand this about Gen Z, but I think that Gen Z really wants to be integrated, to be full of
I
integrity.
would agree with that.
I think they want to be true to themselves and they don't want to be dishonest about it.
Yeah, I think that's very true. They have a high level of social consciousness, more than, you know what I mean? More than you would think for that generation.
Well, honestly, I believe that Gen Z has brought together the best things about X and the best things about millennial, and they've tried to diminish some of the weaknesses of those two groups. Right? Like I think that there's a lot of people in X that weren't very filled with integrity. They were very money motivated, very and I don't I'm not a great person to talk about the environment, but I think that those are simple illustrations that previous generations were willing to run over the environment that current generations are not. And so it's just a mindfulness of that. I hope that helps.
Very cool. So what's one of the biggest struggles that you run into within your organization, Better Together? What obviously you're helping people find jobs, right? So what's the biggest struggle there?
Hiring our own people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, a doctor, heal thyself. Like I wish I could tell you that I practice everything I do for other people when I'm hiring internally. I was on a call yesterday with 4 or 5 other employment agency owners and some consultants, and one of the things that they said that was just really true is employment agency owners often don't follow the same process and procedure for their own enterprise that they do for other people.
Yeah, well, that's always the way,
Right? It's like
designers always have the worst houses, and electricians don't ever fix their, it's always,
the painter never paints his own house. Yeah, I get it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's the nature of it.
And so how long have you been doing this now, David?
since 2004, so 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
All right, so what have you changed your mind about since you started and where you're at today? What's one thing that maybe you've changed your thought process, your mind about?
That's a good question, Jeff.
Most everything.
All of the above.
I think that that's the reality of being a person in your 50s. Is that everything that you knew in your 20s and 30s you've thrown out and you've started again. And it's not really everything. Like, it's hard to be a guy who, stands on the soapbox of integrity and then to come up with a sentence like that. But there's some core principles that I really believe in, and there's some faith things that I have that are really strong. But what I would say is I'm more open-minded now than I was then. And I have the benefit of some years of experience of being wrong to be more open to listening and to, like I said, when I was in my 20s, I really thought I knew a lot. And today I still know a lot, but I'm very interested in other people's opinions and how those things make me stronger, faster, smarter, better. And I want to take the time to slow down. So just before this call, I got off a difficult conversation with a friend of mine in business. And he said to me, Dave, I'm a processor. Let me take this for 12 to 24 hours and think on it before I make a decision. What a smart thing to say.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's just wisdom in that. How often, I come from a group of people that are like, ready, shoot, aim.
Yeah.
It's
that's
like
a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Ready, shoot,
so,
aim.
So it's I need to be better than I am. And one of the reasons why we put better in our name is it's a high calling.
Yes.
And so, like I say to my staff regularly, we can't call ourselves to be better and be the same as.
Mhm.
In order to be better together, we have to be better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, go get it today. Like,
Right.
let's do it.
That's
Love it.
very
Love
interesting.
it.
I bet you though, Jeff, if we ask that question to every single guest we have, what do you know now that you didn't know 20 whatever years ago? They'd all say similarly, I would listen more, or I would not think that I know it all, because it is interesting how once you've been in business for 25, 30 years, you go, wow, maybe I didn't know it all back then.
Well, and life sharpens you, right? Like
Yes.
as you bumped your nose up against a couple of things, hopefully you figured out that I could have handled that differently.
Oh yes. Woo, yeah.
Absolutely.
And one of the great things about having my kids in my business, and I would say it's way easier when it's people like having family in your business or people that you esteem really highly to have come into your business, but like Hannah can lay me low pretty easy. Um,
Yeah.
and in a way that I receive it really well because I know the love behind it,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it makes it easier to have family in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one of those daughters too. I have three daughters, and my middle one, she can pretty much call me out on anything, and I kind of go, "Okay, good call."
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
God only gave me one girl because he knew that my heart wasn't big enough for any more than that.
Oh,
So it's just like, yeah, she gets me. She's a great meld of my wife and I. And so, in the fan illustration, I'm the guy waving around. I'm that guy. And my wife is the strength at the bottom that's holding me down and giving
Yeah.
me balance. And Hannah has both of those things in one
oh,
package.
that's great.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Love
great.
it, love it, love it. Hey, Dave, thanks for being on the show today. We really appreciate your insights and just your experience of what you've learned over the years. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Yeah, Dave at bettertogethergroup.com.
Great.
Is the easiest way to get me. They can visit our website for Hannah and I, x2toz.org. So that's x2z.org, and that's a conversation between her and I about how to manage business and how to deal with these things. And we have a little podcast of our own that we do there.
Awesome.
Check that out anytime.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's great.
Well, again, thanks for being on the show, Dave. Really appreciate that so much.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Pleasure to be with you.
And to all listeners out there, as always, Jan and I always love your feedback. Thanks again for the support that you give us. We're excited for what the future has to hold for this podcast. If you ever need any kind of communication or leadership coaching, don't forget we're here for you. Until the next time, stay safe and be healthy.